This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
What's up, everybody? Football Night in America podcast presented by Applebee's and Devin McCourty and the Coach Tony Dungy here. And it's always an awesome opportunity for me because we don't always get to spend a lot of time together, but we got to be in that divisional game, watching the Eagles and the Rams, and just sitting and watching the game with you and hearing your takes. Love getting an opportunity to talk to you. So, Coach, welcome today, and how you doing?
Well, thank you, Devin. I'm doing great and looking forward to this upcoming Super Bowl. We've had an awesome year. It just seems strange for us not to be out there continuing to work right now, but having fun.
And I got to ask you, what are your first impressions as we sit here and we say Kansas City has a chance to three-peat and to think about this team, everything they've gone through this year? The AFC Championship was the first time they scored 30 points all year, and all we talk about now is football's about the offense, scoring points. Here this team is going for a three-peat, 30 points one time this year.
It's pretty crazy. You have to take your hats off to them. So many back-to-back one-score game wins, just feeling like, hey, we can do this. And I remember the first time we had them this year, I was talking to Travis Kelce and trying to get some inside information for the show. And I said, hey, well, what's the plan for tonight? It's the same as every game we play. Keep it close. If we're in there, Pat's going to win it at the end. And these guys believe that. And that's the way they play. That is the way they play.
It's so funny. Earlier today, I went to the gym and visit people I haven't seen in a while. And like right away, the first question I got in there was, the Chiefs, the refs, they're cheating, right? It's rigged. And I'm like, no. I said, we get the opportunity to watch this team who goes over all the little things, a part of a game plan every single week. And they do it better than everybody. I said, but when the game finishes, everyone looks at a controversial call. I said, but they don't look at all the other things. I said, the Chiefs get the ball back and they have to end the game, 4-minute offense, keep the ball, run out. I said, they ran 2 plays to the running backs that were just really good calls, and that ends the game. I said, but we all ignore that, and we want to stay on, was it a first down when Josh Allen did a QB sneak? What? And I'm just like, that was one play in the game. The Chiefs move on, and they just understand the situation. They execute. Nobody drops a pass or misses a block. They all do exactly what they practice every single day in practice in the biggest moments. And I was just like, when you watch football for a while and you watch, your favorite team or all the games that are on, no matter how you feel about Mahomes and the Chiefs, you have to marvel at the execution week after week, down after down, and all the big moments. And it was put on, display against the Buffalo Bills Sunday night.
Devin, it reminds me so much of playing against you guys, the Patriots. I used to tell our teams all the time, first of all, we're going to have to beat them. They aren't going to beat themselves. And that's the way you guys were. You're well coached. You're disciplined. You're not going to make mistakes. You're going to have less penalties than the other team because you're well coached. You know how to play. And then you got a great quarterback who, if it's close down the stretch, you're just saying, we can't give Tom the ball on the last drive. We just can't do that. And it's the same thing there. You got a well-coached team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And if you give that quarterback the ball on the last drive, he's going to take it down and score.
When you talk about less penalties as a coach, what did you used to do? Let's say you come out of a game and it's a high penalty game, or just overall you don't like the way the team's playing from a penalty standpoint. How did you kind of get that across to your team?
The very first meeting I ever had with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when I took over, Devin, I said, hey, here's how we're going to win. I'm not that smart a guy, okay? But we're going to take care of the ball, and we're going to take it away from the other team more than they take it away from us. That's number one. And number two, we're going to be in the top 5 in the league in least penalties. So I'm only giving you 5 penalties. Offense, I'm going to give you 2. Defense, you can have 2. Special teams, you can have 1, okay? And none of these penalties are going to happen before the ball is snapped or after the whistle. So we're going to eliminate that. If you commit penalties before the ball is snapped or after the whistle, you won't be playing. That's how we're going to do that to start with. That's going to be our MO. So when people say, oh, well, the Chiefs, they're not penalized as much as the other teams. Duh. everybody in their right mind, that's what you set out to do. I'm sure your coach said that. We're not going to be penalized as much as the other team because we're going to know how to play pass defense. We're going to know how to get that ball without grabbing and without getting pass interference penalties. We aren't going to false start. We aren't going to have delay of game penalties. So that's how you do it. And that was my MO for 13 years. I wanted to be the least penalized team in football.
Man, I laugh at as you're doing that because I'm thinking back of all of like the different times in 2011. We're in training camp. You know, everyone says in training camp, like, let the guys fight. Like that's a part of the game. It's training camp. And I remember we had like maybe back-to-back practices where guys kept fighting. And I remember Bill brings us all in and he goes, the next fight that happens in practice, we're done with practice. We're going to run until I think it's time to go inside. And I remember Vince Wilfork bringing back everybody into that circle. And he tells everybody, goes, the next person that gets in a fight, both of y'all are going to fight me as soon as the fight's over. And that was the end. And I remember another meeting where he told one player, he was like, you're not good enough to get 2 penalties in a game. And this was in front of the whole meeting room. And like, I remember everybody's like, man, that's messed up. You don't say that. But it was a reality of, look across the room. That goes for all of us. There's a few guys in here that are going to be okay with getting 2 penalties because they're going to make up for it. But most of us, we can't get penalties and think we're still going to win the game. And that's what sticks out to me. I'm like, so we all agree Kansas City's a good team, but then we act surprised that they're penalized less than all the other teams. Like that's a part of being a good football team. And they just keep doing it week after week, no matter who the opponent is. They don't change how they play. And Kelsey told you that.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And you have to take your hat off to Andy Reid. He did it in Philadelphia. He's doing it in Kansas City. Yes, he's got a great quarterback. And so when you take that great coaching and that atmosphere and that culture of winning and you add that special sauce, as I say, it's just what you guys had in New England. You had that same atmosphere, that same culture. We're not going to put up for lackadaisical play. We're not going to put up with penalties. We're not going to put up with fighting, with penalties after the play. And now you get that special sauce, that great leader that everybody has confidence in. You feel like you're going to win every game. And that's the way Kansas City is right now.
I got to ask you overall about the game. Was there one thing that surprised you in the game, either from Buffalo or Kansas City side, that you just didn't see coming in the game?
What I didn't understand, Kansas City struggles stopping the run. That's the one place their defense struggles. You've got a great rushing attack all year. You've got 3 good backs. Dalvin Cook is averaging about 8 yards a carry. How does he not get 18 carries, 20 carries in that game? That's what surprised me.
Yeah, one of the things that surprised me
was James Cook.
James, yes. One of the things that surprised me was watching Kansas City's offense, how many times in the game Mahomes scrambled to his right, and it was just no one there for Buffalo. Just he's running, and it's like everybody's in coverage. They're doing a decent job in coverage, but the rush was just kind of like trying to get sacks, not overall thinking about, hey, we got to keep this guy in the pocket. He's dangerous when he gets outside, and he hurt them 2 rushing touchdowns, another, group of plays where he ran for first downs. That just shocked me because I feel like every defense in the NFL, when you play Mahomes, both of those quarterbacks, you talk about how can we just keep them in the pocket and not allow them to make all of these kind of off-schedule plays. And Mahomes was able to do that kind of all throughout the game whenever he chose to do it, and that shocked me.
And what did they talk about the first game? Oh, they played a spy. Mahomes didn't have 1 rush the whole game. Well, this is the playoffs. It's different. So you better be ready to go. And they could not contain him. They couldn't stop him. Andy Reid had a couple of design runs. But then the scrambles, I think Buffalo got a little impatient. We got to get after him. We got to sack. They weren't rushing. Honestly, they weren't rushing discipline. And he made them pay. And that was the big difference in the game.
Yeah, and you brought up rushing attack. How about, flipping to the other side, the Philadelphia Eagles, and what they were able to do, set a record of rushing touchdowns in the game. And, to me, it was so interesting because we get all excited for these games, and you see Washington come out, you go on an 18-play drive and you kick a field goal. You're thinking, I'm thinking, man, they set the tone in this game. Like, here you go, you're on the road, you go on an 18, you get these guys tired. And the first play from scrimmage, you see Saquon Barkley do a Saquon Barkley thing. And I saw Darius Slay talk about it after the game. And he said, man, it's incredible watching him. He said, but I'm not going to lie. We just went 18 plays. I wanted to sit on the bench for a while. I was tired. I was trying to catch my breath. He said, we looked out one play. He's gone to that house, touchdown. But I mean, that's how explosive this offense is and what they could do.
It really is. And that's why I think this is going to be a great matchup. I mean, Philadelphia is so strong up front and offensive line wise. They had a couple of guys injured. Hey, we'll just slide them over, plug new guys in. We're still going to run the ball, pound it, and you've got to stop us. Washington did not have a great run defense all year. It showed up. Other side of the coin, they can put pressure on the passer. That defensive front is something. Kansas City's won 3 of their 4 Super Bowls. Well, the one Super Bowl they didn't win was against Tampa. And what did Tampa have? Dominant front on defense. And they had Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones pounding the ball and running it and using the time of possession. So Philadelphia's got the right formula, and they're playing with confidence as well.
And how would you go into a game and try to slow down Saquon Barkley? Like you said, Washington could not do anything with him, and it showed from the first play. And I'm sitting there as play corner and play safety, and I'm just like, the worst thing for me is being that free safety. And Rodney talked about it when we had the Rams game he said, I wouldn't even put the guy 15 yards back there. I put him at 7 or 8 yards and say, hey, we got a better chance tackling Saquon Barkley because now it's the playoffs. Like, this guy's running harder. They're going to probably give him the ball more and more. How do you even try to slow this guy down? Like, those numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah, you see that. And as a defensive coordinator, I know Steve Spagnuolo is saying we cannot let that happen. So we're going to have to crowd the line of scrimmage. You corners, McDuffie and Watson, you are on your own. I'm sorry. But you're going to be out there and you got to hold up because Jalen Hurts might have a bad game. They might drop some balls. But if you don't stop Saquon, he's not going to have a bad game. If he has holes, he's going to go to the house. So you're right. You got to move those safeties up. You got to get in position to tackle all the RPOs. You got to make them throw the ball. You can't let them hand it off, and you got to hope that they have an off day throwing.
Yeah, I remember 2019, we were going to play the Giants later in the regular season, and we had them in the preseason. And Coach Belichick came to all of the starters that weren't playing in the preseason game, and he was like, I want a full breakdown and summary of what you guys see. I want you to go watch film together. And this was early in Saquon's career, and we had never played against him. And I remember sitting in the defensive back meeting room, and we turn on the film, and we all look at each other like, whoa. Like, this dude, it was a spin move, then it was a double spin move. And then the crazy thing to me was when he broke away, like, no one caught him. And to now see what he's able to do and to see what he's able to do because of the guys up front. And you said it, they were a little banged up front, and they didn't skip a beat. Like, you get Landon Dickerson moving over to center to start the game. He can't really finish the game. His knees bother him. So Cam Jurgens, who was active but didn't look like he was going to play, goes in at halftime and says, Coach, don't worry. I got you. And comes back out and starts the second half. It's a feeling. Even when I went down there and interviewed Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, there's a feeling on this team of brotherhood, of togetherness. Like, they talked about as an offensive line unit, like, most of the time when they get together, it's to eat. But, like, you could tell they marvel at the opportunity to block for Saquon Barkley. Yeah. And it's not just because of how good of a player he is. I think they've seen the other side of Saquon Barkley, the person who could complain about the tush push when they get the ball on the 2-yard line. But he just seems so excited to win, to have fun. And this team seems like his presence has really helped him kind of get over the hump and be back in this game.
Yeah, all those guys talk about him as a person, as a teammate, and I think it showed. What showed to me was the fourth quarter. The game has long been won. Will Shipley breaks a run, scores a touchdown, and who's the first guy in the end zone? Saquon. That told you everything you need to know.
And is there anything, like, even going into that NFC Championship game and now in the Super Bowl, that, like, you would have a conversation with Jalen Hurts? Because there's so much, and he seems so poised and doesn't bother him, but there's so much around this team that is highly successful. They're in the Super Bowl. They've continued to win games, but everything always turns into, well, is Jalen Hurts going to do this? Jalen Hurts only throws for 150 yards when they win in a play. Like, it's all of these kind of like, oh, this is great, but Jalen Hurts, like what would your conversations be with him leading into these big games?
I would go back into history and tell him, this is all about winning the games. And if we win, that's going to be our legacy. I played with Terry Bradshaw. The first Super Bowl the Steelers won, he was 9 for 14 for about 97 yards. Do you think anybody cares about that, knows about that? Yes, Franco Harris ran for 150, was the MVP. All they talk about is Bradshaw, you won 4 Super Bowls. Nobody knows the stats at this time. Nobody cares. You won them. And that's what I would tell Jalen. We go out there and win. They may gang up on us, and you may have to throw for 300 yards. But if they don't, if they sit back like Washington did and we pound the ball at them and we win, that's all that counts. So we'll play the game as it goes. If we need you, you'll be great. I know you will. Don't worry about it.
It's such a unique thing, especially when you think about the Super Bowl, because I think about the last Super Bowl the Eagles won, Super Bowl 52 against, myself and the Patriots team, and Tom broke Super Bowl record, 505 yards, like threw the ball all over the field. Defensively, we just couldn't get any stops. Nick Foles played awesome. And I'm sure if you asked Brady if he would take Super Bowl 52 or Super Bowl 53, where, everyone said it was boring, we weren't scoring points, but the opportunity to score and play big, they did it. And you put on another ring. Exactly. And it's so true. And I think that's the cool thing about watching Jalen Hurts and his journey of like every time he does a press conference or something, his attitude and energy is always like pushing to win. Like you guys want to talk about all the other narratives, but I'm gonna push myself to win, and we're gonna do all of these things. We're gonna put ourselves in position to be sitting here at a press conference heading to the Super Bowl, or maybe hopefully for them in a week and a half or whatever it is, sitting at a press conference as Super Bowl champions means more to them and more to him than anything. And like I think about, like you said, my Patriot teams, that's what it was about. Everybody wanted that common goal because we knew that would last a lot longer than any other stat or accolade. And it's cool to see like some of the modern athletes that I think a lot of people don't think it's still true in football, seeing these guys do that and play for a chance just to win a Super Bowl.
And you know who has done that really well? Look at the Chiefs. Everybody, Mahomes, you haven't scored 30 points all year. You're not the same offense. You're not as explosive. He didn't get Pro Bowl votes. He didn't get MVP. Yep. Do you think he cares? No, no. We're trying to get this three-peat, and we don't care if we win 2-1 or 2-0. If we get the three-peat, that's going to be the greatest day in the world. So I think Jalen has a good model right across the field from him.
And it's so funny because I think about one time when we were young, I think we were rookies or second-year players, and Brandon Spikes, who was in my draft class, said to Brady how disappointed he was that he didn't get into the Pro Bowl or anything like that. And I remember he said Tom looked at him and gave him a crazy look, and he was like, what? He was like, dude, we don't care about Pro Bowls around here. We play for Super Bowls, and just walked away. And he was like, that set the tone. And then he understood what it meant to be there and what we were playing for year after year. And like that's special. And I think it's special to know when you come into a season, hey, we got a shot. Like we got a shot to win the Super Bowl, because I think about the end of my career when Tom wasn't there and we had a lot of change. You would go into seasons and you're like, all right, we got to rally the guys. Like we can't think that it's not going to happen. We can't think that we just got to get this team moving in a direction that we give ourselves a shot to win every week. It wasn't the same kind of mentality as we know we're going to compete every week. It's about being there in January and then February. Like that used to be the mentality, and how fast that changes that. Yeah. I think for a lot of these guys, you don't realize it. And I know I didn't. Like when I came in the league, first 10 years, we went to 8 AFC championships. Like I just thought we were going to be there. And when it
that's
left,
how it goes. Huh?
I was like, man, this is hard. This stinks. We're losing. We're not making the playoffs. So it's very unique to have that opportunity. I think both these teams had that coming into the season. They knew where they could be.
No doubt. Yeah. And they relish it, and they're there. And I think we've got the two best teams in football there. And it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And one last thing on both these teams going forward. What would be your final thoughts on what Washington needs to do next, and then also what Buffalo needs to do next?
Yeah, Washington, I think they're sitting in really good shape. They've got this offense really gelling. They have confidence in their quarterback. They've got a young guy that they can believe in. What they've got to do, I think, is get that run defense shored up because that's
Mm.
how I would play Washington if I'm going against them. Let me keep the time of possession, keep the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands, run it at these guys, make them be impatient. So they've got to tune that up a little bit. And to me, everything else is really going in the right direction.
And then how about for Buffalo? What's next after falling short to Kansas City again?
I would give them the same advice that I used to give my teams when we'd lose to you guys in the playoffs. We can't get hung up on one team. You can't get Kansas City crazy and say, "Oh, we've got to do everything. We got to do this to beat the Chiefs. We got to get this player to beat the Chiefs." Be who you are. Continue to get better. You're going to be fine. And this is not a two-team league. You don't have to do everything to beat the Chiefs. Be the best Buffalo Bills you can be. Block out the noise, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I agree for you. Like with Washington, you fix some things, run defense, continue to build on your team. Like you made it to the NFC Championship with this rookie quarterback. Like you
Rookie
should be
quarterback.
inspired, ready to go. And for Buffalo, it's almost like, and I think Baltimore's in the same boat of like,
Yep.
keep getting better. You just happen to be going against a team and an organization right now where they are just on the move. It is going to be tough year after year. But like you said, just keep getting better, keep doing what you're doing and stay the course, man. It's tough. Like I was on the other end of it, so I didn't have to experience that, but I can't imagine just the annoyance of being there, being in that game and continuing to fall short. But
And
again,
you know what
as we
gets to
move,
you, Dev? You know what gets to you is the whole off season. Everybody in Buffalo, that's all they'll be talking about. You can't beat the Chiefs. What are you going to do? How are you going to beat Mahomes? And that'll wear on you. And you've got to just say, you know what? We got to start day one of off-season program and mini camp and training camp. We got to be the Buffalo Bills, and we just got to get better. And we can't worry about one team.
and it's gonna be hard to do. But as we move on, we got this is new for me. So now let's see who's eating good, presented by Applebee's as we move on and we start talking about these new head coaches. The New Orleans Saints is the one team that we're not 100% sure about which direction that they're going to move as they continue to go through. It seems like everybody's saying Kellen Moore is the favorite to get that job, but he's still playing. But as we start at the top with the New York Jets and Aaron Glenn, what would be the number one priority for Aaron Glenn as he comes in and becomes the new head coach of the New York Jets?
Well, I think he's got the elephant in the room there, Dev. He's got to decide what they're going to do with the quarterback. Am I going to build around Aaron Rodgers and take one more run with him? Or am I going to say, Aaron, we're going to rebuild. You had a great career, but we're starting from scratch. I don't know which way they're going to go, but to me, that's the first thing they've got to get squared away as an organization.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Aaron Glenn, he comes in knowing the talent he has on defense, and I think his energy and attitude is going to elevate that defense on day one. But I think it's very interesting, and I wish we all could have cameras in there of I could see Aaron Glenn just going and meeting with Aaron Rodgers and them having this long conversation. Because I think so many people think like Aaron Glenn's going to go in there and be like, Aaron, this is what we're doing. You're either here or you're not. And everything I've gotten from Aaron Glenn is he's a guy that used to play. Like he wants to have dialogue and relationships with guys.
Absolutely.
And I think he's going to sit down. Hey, Aaron, you've been awesome your whole career. I've enjoyed watching like all those things. Like this is what we want to do moving forward. Like we want to know where you're at, where you think,
Yes.
do you see yourself with the team, like all of that. But I think he's going to stand on what he believes in and how the team should be ran. But I don't think it's going to be this like, him banging on the table of what has to be done. And yeah, I don't see that, but I see him as a guy who's just a leader of men.
Yeah. Amen. I agree.
And then moving on to Jacksonville with Liam Cohen, I always think it's funny because we look at these like press conferences and like however you come across is like, this is what's going to happen for that team. Dan Campbell's biting kneecaps and we're like, well, the Lions are going to be bad. And now you look and obviously Liam Cohen's going viral because his Duval is saying that. But I think for him, the first thing is you have to kind of see what's there. Like you've had so much go on in Jacksonville. You know, they fired Doug Peterson, they keep Trent Baalke, then they move on from Trent Baalke, then you come in. It just seems like everything's been moving and fast forward. I feel like his number one priority is just to slow things down for a second and just figure out things one by one. There's no quick fix to say, you know, if we do this one thing, we're going to be fine. It just seems like he needs to kind of slow everything down and bring it back to normal speed and evaluate from there and then kind of move forward.
Absolutely. What type of team are we going to be? We've got a young quarterback who started out his career really well, and now people are down on him a little bit. Well, that sounds a little bit like Baker Mayfield. And I think Baker had a pretty good year last year, just doing what he's comfortable with. And I'm sure Liam Cohen's going to do that. So how is he going to relate to the rest of the team? How are they going to get the defense playing like they played a couple of years ago? As you say, just get them back on one page.
And how about out in Las Vegas with Pete Carroll? Pete Carroll's a guy, you know, was in Seattle a year ago or 2 years ago now, and was out of football for a year. Now he comes back in for the Raiders. What do you see his number one priority as?
Well, Pete's going to bring energy. He's going to bring that reputation. Everybody on that team knows what he did in Seattle. So to me, the big question is, who's going to be our quarterback? Who's going to be our leader? They've got to identify a guy and get behind him, build around him, and say, this is our guy, and go forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think quarterback is the number one priority for them to figure out what's that going to be. And then I think it's also kind of building around what Max Crosby is able to do on the defense and bring in more guys that kind of play with his energy and attitude. And I think it's going to be special to see like Mad Max running around and like Pete Carroll's antics on the sideline. But everything about the way he's run a locker room seems like it's going to be a good fit for Vegas. And I think it's a great opportunity because everyone thinks these coaches have to now be young, be relatable, as if like Pete Carroll can't be relatable to guys just because he's older. So I think it'll be interesting and open up different doors going forward if Pete Carroll can go to Vegas and have some success. And then moving on to the Cowboys, I know you have some history, obviously, with the Schottenheimers, and that goes way back. And I'm sure you spent some time around. Look at right there. Got Schottenheimer.
We had Dallas and Tampa, and Brian comes over after the game, and that's his son, Gage, and we take a picture. I met Brian when he was 14 years old, my first year working for his dad. He's been around the game his whole life. Coach's son, he's just soaked it up and he's been into it. He'll do a really, really good job. And my advice to him would be the first thing you got to do, Brian, is block out the noise. There's a lot of people saying you shouldn't have gotten the job. Jerry just got you the job because he wants to control things. Don't worry about any of that. Do what you do. Build this team in your image, the way you want it, and let everybody know this is going to be your team and this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to be fine.
I agree with you. I think that was my thing too. Of he has to come in and set the standard of what he thinks. Like I think about that Cowboys team. Like yes, he obviously has a great relationship with Dak Prescott, and I think the offense has been around him, and they'll move in a direction. I always look at the other side of the ball as you keep your offensive coordinator is the relationships with the defense. Micah Parsons, an outspoken guy, like making sure those guys are all with you because every press conference he does is going to be, what are you going to do with Dak? How's the offense going to change? What's the running game? And it's going to be easy to forget, like, hey, like he's the head coach now. Like he's in charge of the whole football team. It's not just the offense. It's not just those things. So I think for him going in there and saying, no, like this is what we're doing as a team. Yeah. This is what I like. Like Micah Parsons is going to be here and figuring that stuff out, I think will be huge for him.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Devin, that really kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about. We can take Pete Carroll out of that, but take these other three first-time coaches and add Ben Johnson into it. And I would tell those four guys, forget about X's and O's, forget about fixing the quarterback. The first thing you have to do is establish, guys, this is who we're going to be as a team. This is how I'm going to do things. And this is going to be our identity for the next 5-10 years down the road. I remember I went to Tampa in 1996. My first time as a head coach. I didn't have any reputation other than as a defensive coordinator. They hadn't had a winning season in 13 years. I had to sell them on how we're going to do things, what I expected. Hey, guys, we're not going to win with scheme. We're not going to win fooling people. We're going to out-hit and out-hustle people. That's what I expect. I expect us to be great teammates. I expect us to be the hardest working team. I expect us to be the least penalized team. And oh, yes, by the way, I expect us to be great young men in the community. What we do off the field matters. I don't want to read about any of you guys in the USA Today for the next 6 months because in the off season, they don't write about anything good that you do. The only thing they're going to write about is bad. So I don't want to see any of that. And this is how we're going to do things. And for a lot of guys, it kind of maybe caught them off guard. They weren't expecting that. But after that first meeting or two, they understood, well, this is how we're going to do it as Tampa Bay Bucks now. And I think that's what the young coaches have to, and everybody's going, oh, you got to fix the quarterback. You got to do this. You got to do that. It's not about that. It's about establishing who you're going to be as a team.
It's interesting you say that. I read a book, The Power of Habit, and I'm sure you remember sitting and talking to them. And a good amount of the book was, hearing about what you went in and how you established culture. And how much do you think has changed with, like, when you go in there and you want to establish who you are? Do you think it's very similar that when you did that on, in Tampa and Indy, are coaches able to do it in a very similar way?
I think it is. I think guys want direction. They want to be led. They want to do and know what they're going to be doing. Warren Sapp, he kind of said it out of, maybe trying to be funny, but I can remember him telling the reporter, I'm the only guy in town. I can tell you what I'm going to be doing next year on Thursday at this time because I know exactly what we're doing. It's not going to change. And this is what we're going to do because this is how Coach lays it out. And that, to me, I think guys want that. And when you tell them that this is how we're going to be, and we're going to be the most disciplined team, and this is how we're going to do it, we're going to practice hard. And I was when we had the Bucks, I was over at their practice, and Sheldon Quarles is on the staff now, and he played for me. And he says he still remembers the first meeting when I said we won't have the 53 best players. We're going to have the 53 players that give us the best team. So don't worry about being the best player. Worry about being the best teammate and the guy who can contribute. And he told me that's when I thought I could make the team. I knew I could contribute and I knew I could help and I knew you wanted that. And so I knew we were going to be fine.
That's awesome. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things as these coaches step into these new seats and roles of how do you kind of be consistent day after day with all of the players, not just this player over here, but being and saying, like what you just said, if this is what I say our standard is and what we're going to do, I got to hold you to that standard every single day. And I think some of these coaches, I think that's something that they probably had to do their whole life. And then for other guys, it could be a little bit of a surprise. But I think that's the aspect that people don't always look at. We look at what guys do as offense or defensive coordinators. But when you become a head coach, it seems that that is the number one thing, how you lead guys every single day, the expectation, all of that, which you don't always have to do. And I think you do it in a small part as a coordinator on offense or defense. But like, is that something you've mastered? And we watched like Dan Campbell and what he's been able to do. And speaking about Dan Campbell, how hard is it for like a guy like Dan Campbell? You come in, you have this success, not right away, but kind of early. And now you look up and both coordinators are gone. Several assistants are gone. How hard is it to replace and get a new staff going in that same direction you were going previously?
That can be tough when it happens that fast. You kind of build through it. And when you have some sustained success, you feel like, okay, we're going to lose some guys now. But to have it happen that fast, all of a sudden I lost my offensive and my defensive coordinator. Oh, and they took my receiver coach and my line coach. And you say, wow, I wasn't ready for that. Yeah, maybe I could. I was thinking maybe Antoine Randall L is going to move up and be the coordinator. No, he goes too. So, yeah, that can be an issue, and they've got to keep the continuity. But I think Dan and the way he does things, they're going to be okay. They're going to be fine. But you talk about coaches and establishing culture. I look at Kansas City, and everybody talks about Andy Reid and the play calling, and he's fantastic at it. But think about Kansas City. When's the last time you heard anything controversial come out of the Chiefs? Any problems that they've had or any issues? And you talk to their players, all they talk about is how hard they work in training camp. We're physical. Yes, we play in the preseason. Andy, he has said, this is how we're going to do things. And everybody knows what to expect, and they do it, and there's no issues. It's just one way of doing things. Sean McVay, the same way. And to me, that's where owners, I think, can get a little bit fooled. They look for the glamorous X's and O's, and McVay's got it, and Andy's got it, but that's not what wins for him. What wins is how that building is day in and day out.
That's so true. And going back to the Chiefs, a quick little preview of the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs have opened up a 1.5 favorite and all of that stuff. How do you see some key matchups as we'll just go down the list? What is one key thing on the Eagles offense that you think could be a big part of this game?
Well, I think for me, it's got to be Kellen Moore, and don't leave that running game unless they force you to leave it. If they take it away and they do what we talked about, they gang up on the running game. Now I've got a lot of weapons. I've got Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But don't come out thinking, I got to get the ball to those guys. Let's see if this Kansas City defense can stop that run. I've got a big advantage with my front five against they're small, they're quick, they do a lot of blitzing, but can they just stop us from running the football? That's what Kellen Moore has to find out early in the game.
Yep, and I agree. I thought that was one difference of the Rams game and the Washington Commanders game of I thought Kellen Moore outsmarted himself just a little bit, opening up passing, and then they kind of got to Saquon and ended up with 26 carries. But no, I agree with that. And I think offensively, and I want to see, and I said in that Rams game too, and I thought Jalen Hurts did a better job of that too against the Commanders. I want to see Jalen Hurts let it rip in the run game. When he decides to run the ball, I think about him as a runner, and again, being in the secondary. That's not a fun guy. It's not a break, really, when you tackle Saquon Barkley, and then you look up and you're like, damn, Jalen Hurts kept it now, and now I got to come up and tackle him. So this is the last game of the year. There's nothing else to hold on to. I want to see him be an aggressive runner, because I just think about the problems that now creates for this defense as you're trying to stop Saquon Barkley and you're trying to deal with the offensive line. Then you're trying to stop the RPO of, is A.J. Brown going to come in on a quick slant, or is it going to be a go ball? Oh, no, Jalen Hurts decided to keep it, and now I got to tackle him. So I want him to be aggressive in this game when he's a runner.
And he could be such a factor. We're at the game against the Rams, and early in the game, they fake it to Saquon, and they have the counter play, and Hurts goes 44 yards. We never saw the play again. You know how frustrated I get with those offensive coaches. Would you run that counter play again? Give him the ball. Let's see if they can stop it. Hurts can be a factor. He can be a game changer if they involve him.
And how about the Chiefs offense? What's one key?
It's got to be controlling that defensive line. And Mahomes has been so good at it over the whole course of the year. And we saw all that quick passing, the RPOs in the last game against Buffalo. They didn't let Buffalo's defensive line be a factor at all. So Philadelphia, how are you going to deal with that quick passing game? Now, the other thing, we saw Zach Ertz catch a ton of balls for Washington. Okay, if Zach Ertz could catch 12 passes, can Travis Kelce? I mean, they better have a different plan for Kelce than they had for Ertz.
Man, that's exactly where I was going. The way that the Eagles play is those two corners are really good outside, and they can take away receivers. But in the middle of their defense, and Reed Blankenship ended up on Ertz a lot. And I think they got to either go with Gardner Johnson and I know Vic Fangio's not a big double team and kind of get out of what he does as a defensive coordinator, but to me, they got to find a way to either pack the middle, whether that's a linebacker inside all the time on Kelce. But if Kelce has a big game, I just think you have no shot against the Chiefs, because that's their bread and butter. And I just believe when you play a good football team, you can't let them play doing the things that they love to do and play to their strengths.
Yep. That's, as your coach used to say, make them beat you left-handed. Don't let them beat you with their best stuff.
Exactly. Hey, Coach, man, it's been awesome to get a chance to talk to you and recap a little bit of what happened in the championship Sunday, and then preview the Super Bowl, man. Hopefully I'll see you down in New Orleans and we'll get to hang out some more.
We will. We'll hang out and then come back after the game and talk about it. See if we were right or not.
Exactly. Hey, this is the Football Night in America podcast presented by Applebee's. Appreciate everybody watching today.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.